their Democratic counterparts to the border. Congressman Jim Jordan and Tom McClintock sent this letter to House Judiciary Committee Chair, formally inviting any Democratic colleague an upcoming trip to the southern border. Now, the note comes amid the country seeing its biggest migrant surge reportedly in 20 years, on par for that. One of the congressmen who penned that letter is Representative Tom McClintock. He's joining us now, Republican from California. Our panelists are here as well. Today we have Jessie Jane Duff, Gunnery Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps retired, and Jack Kingston, former Georgia congressman. Good to see everyone here. Congressman, I'll go to you, McClintock, on this one. I know in this letter you also accused Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler of refusing to hold a hearing on this issue. But if they're not holding an issue here or holding a hearing on the issue at home, do you feel that the Democrats will respond to you? Do you feel like they will join you at the border? And have you heard from them?
Well, can we shame them into joining us at the border? I don't know. Can you shame a goat? But the fact is we're in the midst of the greatest border crisis our country's had. In fact, we're long past the point where this is a question of whether this is a crisis. The question is whether we have a border. And at the moment, for all practical purposes, we don't.
Yeah, well, one of the ways you're seeing this step up to a crisis, obviously you have FEMA there at the border, which we know, but now you have this, President Biden tapping Vice President Kamala Harris to handle the surge of migrants at the border. Congressman, is that a good idea? Your thoughts?
Well, putting Kamala Harris in charge of border security is like putting Giselle Maxwell in charge of chaperoning a high school prom. It makes a mockery of the crisis. Kamala Harris is one of the foremost advocates for open borders and has made that very clear for many years.
Jessie Jane Duff, I'll get your response on that and the comments there from the congressman.
Kamala Harris has basically given an example of her laughter about the border. She wasn't even prepared for the question. I don't take her as laughing because she thinks something's funny. I think it's a nervous response when she doesn't have answers. My biggest concern is Joe Biden in charge, or is he going to give Kamala Harris all of the authority to make the decisions on the border? I mean, it wasn't unusual for Vice President Pence to go to the border or go to any other area that needed addressing and go back to the president so that the president can make very concise and educated decisions. Is this the case? Is this what's going to happen? Kamala and Joe Biden have demonstrated that they don't have the concern for the border. They're blaming the Trump administration. They're not taking any ownership or responsibility. And essentially, they've put on a media blackout on many of these facilities where the children are not being cared for properly. We know that they've only allowed one facility that has a soccer field that is essentially one that fell under the Trump administration as a widely acclaimed facility, but those that were the kids in cages under the Obama administration will not see any media viewing. So, the whole thing is a charade, in my opinion.
Before we get to that, Congressman McClintock, last week on the program, I know you suggested the administration's immigration policies have incentivized the massive wave of migrants crossing the border. Here's that soundbite.
It is all being propelled by announcements and policies of this administration that have essentially announced if you can get to America, the odds are very good. You will be admitted, you will not be deported, and you can stay indefinitely.
And doesn't stop there, because Mexico's president commented on the border crisis, saying in part, quote, expectations were created with the government of President Biden. There would be a better treatment of migrants. And this has caused Central American migrants and also from our country wanting to cross the border, thinking that it is easier to do so. What does that say, Congressman, when even Mexico's leader agrees with that point of view, that it is Biden's policies that are bringing the surge of migrants?
Well, listen to the interviews of the illegal immigrants crossing our border. They're asked, why are you coming now? It's because Biden's the president and Biden has said we're welcome. And he certainly has done that in all of his deeds, if not his exact words. He terminated the stay in Mexico policy, abandoned the border wall. He ordered a halt to all deportations. He announced that youths and anyone in the company of a youth or claiming asylum will be allowed to stay and entitled to free food, shelter, health care, transportation, and legal representation. The fact is, most of the world lives in poverty and amidst violence that does not give them a right to come to our country. And yet that is exactly what Biden's policies have invited them to do, and they are.
All right. Thank you so much. Jack, I'm going to get to you in the next round. I'm out of time, but Congressman Tom McClintock, Republican from California, thank you so much. Panelists, stick around. All right. Say